Good morning, everybody from YouTube. Hopefully, I was talking here a minute ago, but I don't think I started the live feed right off. So if there's a big pause, I apologize for that. Just kind of testing out some new software and equipment to do live videos from my studio. And I'm just going to work on this painting a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about painting a fir tree or a pine tree silhouette, and working in oil today. So if you have any questions, you can post them in the comments below. I'll answer them after the live feed has finished. But in the meantime, if you can just watch and kind of learn a few tips and tricks today. And I'm going to try to tune in on YouTube more frequently, especially with the new camera and everything. So thanks everybody. I'll zoom in and zoom out and all that. But to get started, I've been working on this painting for a little while now, and I wanted to put a bigger focal tree over here and then some smaller ones over here, kind of frame in the big clouds and then tidy up the clouds at the end. So what I'm going to do is put in a bigger tree here. I've got an image that I'm looking at on my computer, but to start with, this whole painting was basically alizarin crimson, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, and titanium white. There was a little bit of cobalt violet in there as well. So that's the major palette for this painting. And I'm using this medium here called Neo McGilp, made by Gagnon. Thins the paint down and makes it a little bit more fluid. Also makes it dry a little bit faster as well. So that's helpful when you're painting in oil paints because they dry so slow. When it comes to layering, sometimes it can get a little bit muddy as you paint, especially if you're trying to layer on top of thick, wet paint. So that medium is called Neo McGilp. So I'm going to get right into this. I've got some of that Neo McGilp here. I've got a liner brush, and I've got my phthalo blue. So I'm going to thin that down with some of that Neo McGilp. Got some of that phthalo blue and alizarin. I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue in there as well. And what I'm trying to do is get a really, really dark color similar to the sky up here. And what I want to do is I want to put in a big focal tree here over on the right hand side. And like I said, I'm going to put some smaller ones over here. So basically what I want to do is come way up here into this part of the painting. And this is dry, so it's okay to place my hand. Normally, if this were wet, I'd use a maul stick to brace my hand. But I'm just going to start with the very tip of the tree. And it's just, like I said, I'll zoom in a little bit as we go. But what I'm trying to do is just slowly work out from that tip and slowly make, usually at the top of these pine trees, they're a little bit thicker branch-wise. So I'm making almost a little triangular shape that I'll build off of. So little gaps. I'll zoom in here in just a minute. So if you're just joining me, working on this painting here, just painting live from the studio, testing out some equipment here to do some live videos. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so I'm using that alizarin crimson phthalo blue mix. And you can see from this triangular shape here, I'm going to start building in the trunk of the tree, because as the tree gets closer to the bottom here, it starts getting, the branches get wider, and there's actually some more gaps in the tree. So I like to just use the liner brush, kind of splay out some of these branches, and then add in the little pine boughs to that branch. So you can do a little curl and then just these little dash marks coming out. The big key here for these trees is you want to have a lot of variety. You don't want to just mimic the shapes over and over and over again. So what I like to do is draw the trunk down a little bit. And if all goes well with this live video, I'll do a little bit of the clouds as well. So as I'm working down, like I said, there's some gaps in the tree. Some openings. A lot of times what I see is when people paint in fir trees, they go a little bit too even. So they'll make the same branches on both sides. So for this one, like I said, I've got an image I'm looking at on my computer, which makes it easier. You want to have lots of little variations as you work your way down. Sometimes the branches can come straight out. Sometimes they can curl a little bit. Like I said, a major key here is to get variety. And another thing is you don't always have to go super wide as you go down. It can kind of be contained within this shape and just slowly get wider. It doesn't have to go super fast into a triangle. So once I put a few branches in, I try to add in some more of the trunk of the tree coming down. So just got the radio going, so if you hear weird voices, commercials, just the radio. It's always nice to paint with music, especially calm, relaxing music. I like to listen to stuff that's a little bit more relaxing, especially when you're doing details. When I'm painting big areas, maybe listening to something a little more upbeat kind of gets your arm moving a little bit better, gets you into a rhythm. So when you're painting these pine boughs, another thing sometimes people forget to do is leaving little gaps in certain areas so you can see through to the background. And sometimes, like I said, the branches can curl up. Sometimes they can curl a little bit down. Okay, so again, if you're just joining me, my colors I'm using are phthalo blue, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue to make a really dark color. I'm trying to almost match the sky color up here. And hopefully this live feed's going all right. I'm not really watching it on the computer. but just testing out the equipment. As long as I can get these live feeds going nice and smoothly, I'll be doing a lot more of them on my YouTube channel, as well as my Facebook page. If you're interested in online painting lessons and you want to learn how to do a whole painting like this, make sure you visit my website, timgagnon.com. My last name is Gagnon. It's kind of a weird pronunciation, but so timgagnon.com for online painting lessons and videos. So if you get a chance, check out my website. Or if you're just checking out my channel, make sure you subscribe so you can check out the next live feed. I'll be doing some drawings, some big paintings. Sometimes I'll explain what I'm doing. Sometimes it'll just be tuning in and having some music going, watching me paint. It can be relaxing, especially in the crazy times that we're living in right now. Painting has definitely been a good outlet for that stuff. Okay, so as I work my way down, again, you really want to leave lots of gaps, lots of openings. You can have parts of your tree be nice and full. There, I brought the tree trunk all the way down off the page now. I'll start to go a little bit wider. So I want to start bringing these branches out a little bit further. And still putting little dash marks to create little pine boughs. I'm putting the paint on pretty thick. I don't mind if there's a little bit of texture in there. Sometimes that adds to the tree, gives it more of a almost a realistic look if you've got a little bit of texture in your paint. I like using the liner brush because it gives me really good control over what I'm doing, especially with the pine boughs as you get out towards the end here. You're putting these little pieces on. So as I get down lower, going even thicker, not only with the branches, but with the pine boughs themselves, making it a little bit bigger, a little more substantial. Right at the end is where you want to focus on getting a little bit of detail. This stuff in through here, really, since we're working with a silhouette, it doesn't really matter too much what's going on in through here, as long as you have some gaps going through to the background. Okay, so you can see it doesn't take too long to do a good silhouette of the pine tree. And it's much more effective if you have a lot of sporadic shapes rather than just a perfect triangle like a Christmas tree. Sometimes you see that's how people paint them. The more variety you have in your brush strokes, the more little details you have at the ends of these pine boughs and these branches, the more effective it's going to be. I'm going to really thicken it up right through the bottom here. Have it go right off the bottom. And just on these ends, I want to make sure I'm getting little pine boughs. You can see little branches going in between some of these areas. All those little details is what really brings it together. Put a little gap right here so you can kind of see the tree trunk a little bit. And then once you have the overall shape in there, then you can go in along the edges, add in some other little details. Again, you want to kind of have some sporadic shapes here and there rather than having it all very uniform. Okay, so that's probably what I would probably do. Well, I probably will. I won't do it on this live video, but add in another tree over here just to kind of frame in this focal tree. And I'm going to add in a few more distant trees, maybe a hill off in the distance. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to do a little bit on the clouds just to talk about some of the cloud techniques. And then I'm just going to call that good for the day after the clouds and just see if the live stream worked well, see the quality, see if there's any questions, things like that. And I'll build on this and add in more live videos as we go. So let's zoom out. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the clouds. So I use, for my clouds, I have a brush set that I sell on my website. It contains these 3 round brushes and this large brush. And what I like to do is use the round brushes to create the contour shapes and the large brush to blend everything out. So at this point, this stage of the painting, I would start picking out some of these areas between the contours to brighten up just a little bit. I'm pretty happy with the values right now, but I want to make a couple areas pop just a little bit. So I used phthalo blue for the most part. Got some titanium white here. And I'm going to make a new pile just because I've got my phthalo blue mixed in so well with my other colors to make this tree. So I'm using some Gamblin phthalo blue. I use Gamblin and Michael Harding for the most part. So with my small round brush, some phthalo blue, and some white, titanium white. I'm just trying to find a value that's just slightly lighter than what's already on my painting. And I want to have a thin layer, so I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm going to grab just a little bit of this and just kind of test it. And that's good. That's a little bit brighter. One of the things that I notice is sometimes people go too bright too quickly. So what I want to do is just pick out a few spots here that are a little bit brighter. And what I'm going to try to do is emphasize this piece here. So I'm going to brighten up some of this area around it. What that will do is it will make this part here stand out a little bit more. I want to bring some of that brightness away from the edge too, just a little bit, so it doesn't look like it's just outlined. Okay, so that made that part stick out a little bit better. And what I would do with a dry brush, just take a dry brush and brush over it to soften any sharp edges. So maybe I'd bring that brighter color down here a little bit. And then soften that up a little bit. And that helps bring out that one piece of the cloud that I had mentioned there in the beginning. So that same color, now I want to maybe emphasize spot here and there up top. Again, brushing the color on and blending it out a little bit. Then maybe within this section, I want to brighten up. This piece here coming down. So if it's ever too dark, you can put a little pressure on the brush and that will darken it right back up because it actually removes a lot of the paint that's on there and it leaves just a little tiny bit, which is just enough to make it slightly brighter. So highlighting these little areas within the cloud, and this is a more complicated cloud, and I do have lessons on how to do clouds like this on my website. So if you want to learn more about how to actually do this type of cloud from start to finish, it'll be easier to understand if you were to watch one of those lessons. But when you're creating these contours within a contour, you want to go really slowly when you're adding the lighter values, because you want to be able to add in a little bit of a value, brush it off, darkens it up a little bit just by brushing it off, sit back, look at it, and you want to gradually build up some of these things, some of these layers. If you go too quickly, what happens is the painting will just get flat and you'll lose a lot of depth. because what happens is you end up just kind of washing everything out with white and bright color. And you definitely want to avoid that. Okay, so that's going to conclude my live video for today. I just wanted to show you just a couple kind of quick tips and tricks today with oil painting, creating a large pine tree, and then just a few tips on the clouds. Just basically testing out the equipment, making sure that the live video goes smoothly, so that way I can do more live videos in the future. Makes life easier. You can just watch me paint. I can explain things. And in the future, I'll do a little bit of interaction, answer questions as we go. But thanks for joining me today on YouTube. And if you haven't joined my channel, make sure you subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and also check out my website, timgagnon.com. That's TIMGAGNON.com for online lessons and instructional videos. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll catch you next time.